Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be talking about honoring Hecate on the dark moon, and then I'll lead us through a meditative ritual where we journey to leave an offering on the moon altar for Hecate on the dark moon. So let's begin. I talk about honoring Hecate on the dark moon in the Keeping Her Keys book. So if you are interested in a semi-structured program of study to help you with your devotional journey with our beloved Hecate, you can find lots in this book to inspire and guide you. So I am recording this, I guess, on the eve of the dark moon. So let's begin with the basics, because there's a lot to kind of take in terms of how to do this practice, where it comes from, even what is the dark moon. So let's start with the beginning. So the dark moon is the period when the moon is not visible in the night sky at all. Now, fortunately, in the modern world, of course, we have these astronomical tables that give us the precise timing of when the new moon occurs. So the dark moon can be considered as synonymous with the astronomical new moon. I write about this a little bit in Keeping Her Keys. I found it a little bit befuddling over the years, although I've gotten used to it. So the astronomical new moon, you can see it. I've got my wall calendar right here. It's on it. In the ancient practice of doing a ritual to Hecate when the moon was dark, it was generally observed on the night they knew there would be no moon. But there's a note here, like if you want to be inspired by ancient practices, the note is this, that in the areas where this ritual would have been done, for the most part, they observed that the day started at sundown. So they didn't have our clock, our clock where the day starts at midnight. I even find that kind of weird. But anyway, to stay focused, their practice was the day started at sundown. So it was tied to the natural rhythm and not tied to chronological time as we know it today. So if for us, since we have chronological time and we know chronologically when the new moon occurs, because we can look on our calendar, our apps, and so on, and we see it. If we want to be inspired by how the ancients would have done this ritual, we would look at the calendar and see what time the astronomical new moon occurs, and then we would look to where that falls within a day that starts at sundown. So just let's walk through this. So for example, it's November here, a very sacred month for Hecate because of the darkness, and there's some modern celebrations. In my school, we do one of our 4 high rituals for the whole year during November. So it's a big Hecatean month, Scorpio season and such. It gets dark here at 5 o'clock-ish. So let's look and see. So the astronomical new moon is at 5:57 p.m. on November the 23rd. So for me, where I am in the world, it will already be dark at that time. So if I wanted to follow the ancient system of the day starting at sundown, then I could do that ritual that evening. So it's lined up this time. If, for example, the astronomical new moon, let's say, was even like an hour or two earlier, then I would observe it. If I wanted to be super technical, inspired by the ancients, business, I would observe it the night before, because that moon occurs before the sunset on that day. So it relates to the preceding sunset. So that day, so right now, like a traditional, more natural cycle based rhythm to the day would go from about 5 p.m. to 5 p.m. using chronological time. And then, so wherever the astronomical new moon falls within that period is when I would most likely do some sort of ritual. That being said, there is space. Usually, I like to say 24 hours in advance, 24 hours after the astronomical new moon, when the moon is going to be not visible or barely visible in the night sky. So don't stress. If it's not the exact time, or if this seems really complicated to you, don't worry about it. But just so you know, because it's good to know what the ancient system would have been, because honoring Hecate on the dark moon is a very ancient practice. And for me, I find it deepens my connection to Hecate when, even though what I do is very much through my kind of contemporary lens, I like to have those ancient roots wherever possible, and then evolve the practice for how it makes sense for me personally and how I share it with all of you. So that's a little bit about when the heck is the dark moon. When the Hecate is the dark moon, it is astronomical new moon. And if you want to get, if you want to level this up a bit, you can look at the timings and kind of be inspired by that ancient or more natural cycle that the day ends and begins linked to the sunset. Okay, so that's that whole business. So let's just unpack a little bit about where this all comes from. So in areas of the ancient Mediterranean, there was a practice, and this was done by the Greeks for sure, we know. So we're talking over 2,000 years ago. From the historical records, there are quite detailed records describing what was known as Hecate's Deipnon. So Deipnon is spelled Deipnon. Of course, I say it with my East Coast accent. There are other ways to say it. That's fine, however you say it. Deipnon means supper. Okay, that's all it means. So Hecate's supper. In my book, Entering Hecate's Garden, I go through all different recipes that you can do to create your own Hecate's feast. Right now, if you look behind me on my altar, I have a really simple Hecate's meal, which is pomegranates. So pomegranates are so associated with spirits, with rebirth. They're very connected to our beloved Persephone. And in my way of thinking, Hecate is like the guiding spirit, and Persephone is the journey that we're all on. We're all on that journey of rebirth, of going into the underworld. And so we are Persephone. So the pomegranates, personally for me, are a very special offering. So I encourage you to, if you are doing food offerings or whatever your offerings are, in the school we work with psycho-spiritual offerings as well. as food and other tangible offerings. So just to amplify like that, the offering should be something that has deep personal significance. That it's not just performative, like we read somewhere, well, you should do this and you should do this. It needs to have that deep symbolism and really come from a place deep inside of you for the offering to carry a lot of gravitas and not be just performative, like to really take it in and experience, this is why I'm offering this, this is what it means to me, and within my being, this is what's connected to what I'm offering up to Hecate during this period. So it's, that deeper meaning is so important, for me at least, in any type of spiritual practice. We don't want to, for me, I don't want it to be just like, I got to do this thing because someone told me to do this thing. And if I do this thing, then I'll be done. Like, take your time, make it meaningful and significant. It doesn't need to be elaborate. It doesn't need to cost a penny. If pennies are even a thing where you are in the world, they did away with them here in Canada years ago. It can be something you find, it can be something you create, it can be an intention written on a piece of paper. Like, don't fall prey to all of that bullshit out there where it's like, well, if you don't do this for Hecate, she won't be happy and she's going to smite you down. No. Let's have none of that here. Let's go into this with authenticity and affection for Hecate and sincerity and a lot of spiritual liberation. We don't need more spiritual conditioning around this, right? So that's, I guess, my big container. So specifically, we talked about when is the dark moon, big container, make this personal, make it intimate, don't listen to bullshit dogma. And then what are you going to do? So for me, if I had to recommend, like, what's a basic practice for honoring Hecate on the dark moon, I'm always going to say, get with your candle if you can, have your simple offering, maybe have some words that you've been thinking about or something you want to talk to Hecate about, do some planning if you can, and then light your candle. And I'm doing this recording in the dark because I wanted to kind of simulate what this might feel like for you. And just have your candle and really contemplate her as that hero spear, the sacred flame. Hecate, one of Hecate's most enduring symbols, of course, is the torch, representing that she is the eternal flame. She's the light in the darkness and so on. So just connect with your candle. I do teach a simple ritual, so it's always good to begin with that. And that is just moving your candle. LEDs are fine if that's what you've got. Your hands are fine. In a counterclockwise left motion, and just see that as removing any negative energy, cleansing space, and so on. And then switch it to the right hand. And we're going to do this 3 times around to connect with Hecate's triple nature. And when we do it clockwise right hand, that creates a protective space. It also connects, it's casting that circle around. So we do like the banishing circle, and then we do the protecting, connecting circle. And then I always go in with some kind of invocation or verse I've written or some part of this that sets the energy for what I'm going to be doing. So I thought I would offer you this invocation as we go into the meditative ritual part of our time together honoring Hecate on the dark moon. So this is from chapter 1 in my upcoming book. It should be out soon, Entering Hecate's Cave. Great Hecate, gods, goddesses, guides, and spirits, elements, directions, animals, plants, and stones, all that is, was, and ever will be, guide me along my way, protect my journey, and bless my path. As I speak it, it becomes so. Hail, Hekate. And if you have an offering that you've set out, you can hold that up and say, Great Hekate, guides, spirits, allies, plants, stones, animals, I make this humble offering to you with sincerity. It is an expression of my deep affection and appreciation for you. May it please you. May we both be nourished by this. It can be very simple. And that is inspired version of the ancient Hecate's Deipnon. Now you can add to this cleansing. So I teach, this is in Entering Hecate's Garden, this technique. Let me get the book out. Entering Hecate's Garden, this technique. So this technique is also inspired by ancient practices, and it's known as khernips. So if you want to do some cleansing, you can do it after the invocation if you like, or before. I'm using wormwood. I have so much wormwood from the garden this year. So you want to use a plant that is safe for you, that you deeply connect with, and that perhaps is historically associated with Hecate. So what you do is you light the botanical matter on fire. You can see I've got mine on fire. And then you take a bowl of sacred water and you extinguish it. And what this does, and you want to start moving it in that counterclockwise left-handed motion to activate the water, sanctify the water. And what this does, it creates the energy of the union of land, sea, and sky. Also the four elements, of course, because plant comes from earth, fire, the air, which is the smoke from the fire, and water. So it unifies elements and the worlds, and is reflective of Hecate's triple nature, because of course Hesiod ascribed to her having dominion over land, sea, and sky. And then we move this in this counterclockwise direction with the plant material, creating this water. And that is the basics procedure to do this ancient ritual of purification that may have been part of these ancient rites that were associated with honoring Hekate on the dark moon. So you get the water. The water is sanctified now through this protocol. And I, over the years, have developed a Latin invocation that I use with this procedure. So I take my left hand, because this is a cleansing activation. So you want to cleanse with the left hand in the counterclockwise. And you can anoint your own land, sea, and sky, root, heart, and crown with your left hand, and take that water in a counterclockwise, clearing those three energy epicenters that are associated. Of course, they're much greater than the physical self, but they are associated with the physical self. So this would be an additional methodology that you would add to the candle ceremony, and then whatever your chosen invocation is and whatever you're offering in, you can add this cleansing again in the spirit of those ancient practices. So I am happy to share with you the Latin invocation that I use with this. So what I say is procul o procul este profani sit mihi fast odita loci, which means in English, I banish the profane from this place. I speak only the truth, and I shall be heard. And then you can asperge, your space. You can go through your whole house with this. It's so great. It's one of our favorite techniques in Covina for cleansing this space. And again, any kind of purifying botanical that you can use. I've got wormwood. I use mugwort, thyme. And I have a lot from the garden. So I use whatever kind of speaks to me. Lavender. A lot of these, of course, you can get now at your supermarket and let them dry for a few days, and then they'll burn just fine. So that is that. And then so the khernips bowl has been set. And that was done by the ancients to cleanse the miasma, which was the psychospiritual gunk that accumulates on us during the month, in the home during the month. And just going through, if you can do this with the people you share the house with, it's such a beautiful ritual that you can do anytime, really, but it's associated with this practice, inspired by the ancient rituals of Hekate on the dark moon. So far, what we've done our candle ceremony, we've done our incantation or invocation, and then we've made an offering, and we've cleansed space. So we've done quite a bit. This is very many steps here so far. Now, let's talk about one part of the ancient practice that I believe is really beautiful, a little bit intimidating, but wonderful, which is honoring Hekate by taking the offering to a physical crossroads when the moon is dark. This is a great practice. I always say, like whatever food you leave out or whatever you leave out, if there's going to be animals around, make sure it's going to be safe for the animals. Pomegranates are a good choice. Around here, we have raccoons. They'll eat anything. Though there was that one time that the porcupine ate my poppet full of mandrake root. And I always wanted to know how the porcupine made out with that. He was fine the next day. I saw him again wandering around. So I didn't think the porcupine would eat that poppet. So if there are animals in the vicinity, you want to make sure that what you do is safe for them. And you want to make sure what you do is safe for you. I've heard so many awesome stories over the years of people and the way they kind of do this on the down low because they don't want to draw a lot of attention to them. Stories of people who find like a rubbish bin at an intersection and, discreetly put their offerings like beside the rubbish bin because that's where the city animals, will go to look for food. So that I call that a pilgrimage, right? That's a pilgrimage to Hekate. And if you do venture forth, make sure you're safe, of course. And you can chant while you're doing it. That's one of my favorite things to do. I also do like an inventory of the preceding month and kind of dialogue with Hekate, like how did I honor her through my actions and my thoughts? Was my life a reflection of what I believe is the mission that she assigned to me in this life? So I do that as a pilgrimage. You can certainly do it. I often do it just in front of my altar. You could do it in your bed if you're not feeling good. It's fine. So that's can be one aspect of it. So you do the things in front of your altar, and then you can venture forth with your offering and leave it somewhere. It's really beautiful. Oh, the tradition is after you leave the offering, don't look back. It's hard for me not to, but that is the tradition, that we give Hekate and her spirits the space and the respect to come and retrieve their offering in the energetic sense, without us needing to verify it. So it is like it's a trust issue, right? Like that we trust that the offering is symbolic and is connected to the intention underlying it, and that since it is of the world of force as much it is of the world of form, that that energy that we've put into it will lead to Hecate and or her spirits coming to retrieve it, because it's like the energy under the offering is what works, because we're talking about something deeper and energetic and symbolic, not working just on the mundane world of like, here's the food and we feed the food. There's that deeper thing to it, and food of course always has that deeper meaning, so it's super special to leaf food. Traditional foods associated with Hecate. I've got the pomegranates here, garlic. I think there's garlic around here. So get some garlic here. Garlic is another one. Little cheesecakes. In Covina, in my school, we have a whole collection of cakes for Hecate, inspired by all the ancient recipes from the Greeks and the Romans that we've made. So there's lots. And then you can, of course, look in here as well for recipes for what you might want to do in terms of a food offering. So you go and you leave your offering. If the offering doesn't disappear thanks to wildlife, do you just leave it there? Where I live in the world, where I live rurally, the offering is always eaten by somebody. But if it's a consideration for you that you need to go and retrieve it in a few days, just put it in your compost bin. Don't worry about it. Another thing is sometimes I get asked about what my practice is around like food offerings. Do I eat them? And my answer is I always eat them, because for me, we are of the goddess. So of course I would eat them. I know some would say otherwise. And I would say, like, do what feels right in terms of whether or not you eat them. Like if it's something super special that you feel is just for Hecate, then don't eat it. But if you feel like you're connecting to her by creating the offering and then you eat it, like it's all a very, spiritual practice. I think cooking for the goddess, these cakes for Hecate that we make, it's such a deeply spiritual practice for me, and it really connects me to Hecate. And I know all of my guides in this school who do this as well, like that is part of the ritual and it really connects us. So baking for Hecate is a wonderful way to kind of amplify this. And if you can't do it, if you're busy and all you got time for is to grab an apple and cut it up, that's beautiful and it will be well received if there is that underlying energy of intentionality, right? Don't sweat it. It's fine. Couple of notes, couple of more like history geek notes on how this ritual is performed by the ancients is that they would clean their house, and in preparation, so much like we did the khernips for purification, there was also house cleaning of the whole day. That is a practice I observe. I sweep the floors, clean the bathroom, make sure the house is extra tidy on the day when it will be the new moon. That is about getting rid of miasma for the month and is a form of honoring Hecate, because when we clear ourselves of unnecessary toxicity, then we are becoming more sovereign, more responsible for our own life, and we will require Hecate's atropaic protection less. Apotropaic. I always say that wrong. Apotropaic protection less. So that just means like that she is our great protector. So if we just let ourselves be in toxic relationships and our house is a mess and all that stuff, and to the best of our abilities, we need to to deal with this, right? To get our Hecatean shit together, then that is like honoring her, because we're saying we don't expect you to do all this for us when we're not willing to do what we can do. So that kind of gets into the deeper meaning of why they would clean the house. The other aspect of this is part of what they would offer to Hecate, whether it was just outside the threshold or at the crossroads, were these household like leftovers, basically waste. So like sweeping the floor, or cleaning out the fireplace, or for them, if they did like an animal sacrifice, the leftovers from the sacrifice, the leftovers from the purification ritual, all of these would be bundled up and left at the crossroads as well as part of the offering. And this can be kind of bizarre sounding for us, like why would we give Hecate garbage? But this was part of the ritual experience because it was seen as Hecate was accepting of what we could no longer use, what was the leftover, what was the garbage, and so on, and that it would be well received by her. And then today we might say, well, because she will recycle it, because she is the goddess who eats all of our filth. She's Babora Forba in one of her aspects. So it makes a lot of sense. So I think we've kind of covered most of what was done in that ancient ritual. I haven't used the fancy terms, which is fine. But I think I've covered all of the stages. So there was the household. I kind of started with the household cleansing back at the end, because I wanted to kind of say what's most important is, connecting to Hecate through the candle, making a really meaningful offering, doing some kind of invocation, and then you can expand on that. You can go to the actual crossroads, you can clean your house, you can do the khernips purification ritual. So you can kind of add to it quite a bit as you go through the process. And it's wherever you're at. It might change every month. I have a special Hecate tree, and I know a lot of my guides and students have a Hecate tree that they go to. I have an big old wicker chair at the tree where I can leave the offering. So it's kind of like an outside altar that's very natural and doesn't interfere with the wildlife. So if that might be something that you want to discover too, if there's a special place that becomes your place where you go for these crossroads offerings on the dark moon. So I think that's just about everything I wanted to talk about. And now let's go through a brief meditative journey experience of going to the crossroads to leave Hecate an offering. So close your eyes if that's available to you. Soften your gaze. And let's just take a deep breath here. And let it go. And if you did create a physical offering, if you can kind of conjure that in your mind screen, that's really helpful right here. And see your physical offering. And let's just take another breath and let it go. And if you can, feel that place deep inside your sitting bones, that root, just kind of naturally relax, and energetic roots tether you to the earth, going deep, really giving you that sense of grounding. Maybe put your feet firmly on the ground here to connect with Chthoniya, Hecate of the earth. And then turn your attention to your heart center, which is about our interaction with the external world, that intersection. And here you might connect to Hekate as Enodia, the goddess of our journey, the very much the goddess of getting through this life in one piece. And then turn your mind upwards, and you might think of Hekate as Cleidochus, keeper of the keys of the greater knowledge, the greater wisdom, the infinite, and so on. We might call this the third eye today. And now, if you can, see in your mind's eye a beautiful gate. And you can use your breath here as you exhale, step through that gate into Hecate's deeper world. And we are here in her beautiful garden. And of course, it is night and there is no moon, but the torches are all lit and the pathway is clear. And there are the sounds of the night creatures all around us. And pay attention to what you see and what you feel as you step into this sacred space of Hecate's garden. And let's walk down the path now. Up ahead, you see a beautiful altar. And in the center of this altar is that great flame, that hero spear, the fire of Hecate. Now approach the altar and let that altar look to you how it wants to look to you. And if you have your offering, place it on this altar. And just taking in your experiences here, you might see Hecate, you might see one of her allies or her animals. You might even receive a token here, keys, and so on. Now let's expand our gaze out from the altar, and we see that our beautiful altar is at that three-way crossroads. One way goes down to her cave and that deep healing place. One way goes up to her temple and all that is astral. And the other way goes straight ahead deeper into the garden and its mysteries. And just take it all in. Maybe one way calls you more than another. Just feel that space of being here at the altar, at the crossroads. And now let's go back down the pathway to regular mind, stepping through the threshold, coming all the way back into our physical self. Bringing with you any impressions, what you seeing in the garden, what your experience of the crossroads was. Just holding space for all of that now, bringing it into your consciousness so you can engage with it. You can inquire as to what it might mean for you. See how it shows up here more in the coming days. Look to your dreams and so on. I really encourage you to make some notes about what you see during one of our meditative journeys. And then pay attention to the synchronicities, the dreams, even the cards. So to complete this as a whole, honoring Hekate on the Dark Moon Ritual, this is a great time to do an oracle for yourself. In the Keeping Her Keys book, and also in Entering Hecate's Garden and Entering Hecate's Cave, I talk about a simple 2-card daily oracle that I really like, which is the approach of void. You ask the cards to give you one message that you should approach and one thing that is to be avoided, ignored, and so on. So it's the 2 basic momentums of all energy, moving towards, moving away from, and that is a great way to complete this ritual. You can put out your candle, make your notes, and even stay in presence of Hecate and allowing her to speak and dialoguing with her. You can draw a picture, make a collage, whatever kind of comes through. Just enjoy the experience of honoring Hecate on the dark moon in a deeply personal and intimate way. You can make it very simple, very elaborate. It is a sacred, special time, and I hope that you find great nourishment and connection with Hecate during the dark moon. Thank you so much for watching, and hail Hecate.